Welcome everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining for this Sunday live show. I can see a lot of people who are there on Zoom as well as. So thank you so much and good evening everyone. I can see some of the consistent faces since last 2 months. So we have completed. We started this journey of Sunday live medical shows from 26th of July, and today is the eighth session, and we have completed exactly 2 months from the day we started, and we have covered a lot of topics on medical devices. Initially I have been doing it myself, and we have discussed the various segments, how pharma medical device sales is different from pharma sales, and what are the reasons why you should get into medical device sales. So this endeavor on the bright orbit is all about creating awareness about medical device industry, and obviously to help you make better career decision, better career choices, and obviously it's an endeavor to help you build the relevant skill set to be successful in medical device industry. And as all of you know, and I can see some of the faces for the first time. If you are here, guys, if you are here for the first time, just type ft. Ft stands for first time in the comment box, and if you are there on the YouTube live, just type in ft with your name so that I know you are here for the first time. And guys, give a big round of welcome to all these people who are there for the first time. Yeah, I can see some of the comments on the chat box. Poco, I don't know what's your name. Sudarshan is there for FT. Yeah, welcome Sudarshan. And I can see some of the people who are there on YouTube live as well. So welcome guys on YouTube. Nitya is here for the first time. Welcome Nitya. So guys, good to see you. Yeah, Ayush Pandey. Lot of people are here for the first time. Poco is Aman Sethi. Yeah, hi Aman. Good evening. So guys, good to see you. Just keep commenting on the chat window with your name and your company as well, so that we know who all are there on this platform. And as I said, that we have covered 8 weeks of this session. So today is the eighth session, and as you know, we have covered a couple of guests in the previous couple of sessions. So we have covered about cardiology, medical device industry, and also in the last session we covered the what are the relevant skill set which one need to build from to promote or to reach to a top position from the ground level. And today it's my privilege and honor to have to introduce Mr. Salil Kallianpur to all of you. And I'm sure many of you know him, and he doesn't need any introduction. So thank you so much, Salil sir, first of all, for accepting my invite and being here on this show. And I think a lot of people already know you, but I will not be right on my part if I do not briefly introduce yourself and say a few words about you. So guys, for all of you who do not know Salil, so Salil is an extensive has got an extensive experience of more than 2 decades in healthcare industry, in majorly in pharmaceutical, and briefly has worked in medical devices industry as well. So he is a pharmacy graduate from MGR University, Tamil Nadu, and then he did his master's diploma in business administration as well from Symbiosis University. And then he started off his career in pharmaceutical industry. He has worked in companies like Dr. Reddy's, Novartis, Pfizer, GSK, and briefly for some time in Medtronic as well in medical devices. And he has got diverse experience, be it for marketing, sales, commercial leadership, strategy, you name it, and he has all the relevant experience, I think. And we all are very fortunate to have him on this show. And to tell you also, he has served as an executive vice president of GSK, and he has not only worked in India but has also managed leadership positions in global emerging markets like Middle East, North Africa, Russia, and other developed markets like Europe, apart from India. And now he is the founder of Arcs Knowledge Consulting Services, and he leverages the extensive experience of more than 2 decades in marketing strategy, and he is also helping digital startups in the healthcare system, growing them, and suggesting as a mentor and advisor. So and he is also visiting faculty to NMIS Mumbai, which is a great institute for pharmacy and pharmaceutical management. So without any further ado, thank you so much once again, Mr. Salil, for joining this show. And I hand out over to you to probably briefly take the audience through your career journey in your own words. I think they would be willing to hear from your own words.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pankaj. First of all, my compliments to you for creating a forum like this, where we are able to uh, talk to and meet with so many bright individuals from both sectors, from pharma as well as medical devices. It's great that there is somebody who or a forum is created like this where we can all get together to pass on information, to provide clarity, to give suggestions, and a little bit of share experience. So my compliments to you. I also want to thank my old friend and ex-colleague Sriram Subramaniam for putting me in touch with you, and through you to everybody who has joined the call today. So good evening, everybody, and it's a pleasure and honor to be addressing you, to be speaking with you today, and I look forward to lots of questions and interaction. So. Let me start off by giving you a brief introduction. I know you've been very kind with your words, Pankaj, but I'm not so well known in the industry that everybody knows me. So thank you for introduction. And let me, I started my career after my B Pharmacy in 1993, and from then on, I worked in a company called Surdia Pharmaceuticals. Uh, I was in sales for about 5 years, 5.5 years, where before I decided uh, to do an MBA. At that point of time, the product managers in Surdia were all doctors and people who had a lot of medical understanding, very very strong on training, on science, and so on and so forth. And most of the products that Surdia marketed at that time were neither in the textbooks nor did doctors have a lot of clinical experience with them. And so we used to have a great deal of fun trying to convince doctors and educate doctors. And I mean, it's a bad word to say educate doctors, but we used to kind of have some science and all that on which doctors did. They looked forward to it because there was some novelty in the content that we used to have. So about 5 years into sales, then I decided that I wanted to go into brand management, because like everybody, you see those very charismatic guys coming, in the cycle meetings, and then standing and making presentations and talking about strategy and using a lot of jargon, and I wanted to do that. Although I was very fearful of being on stage, public speaking, or the public stage held a lot of fear for me. So I used to kind of duck behind colleagues when the detailing competition was going on. So so that I wouldn't get picked. But for my size, I wasn't very lucky. So I would always get picked, and then it would be a terrible experience to stand in front of 100 people and detail a visual aid. So somehow, the irony of both these things kind of came together, and then I went to Symbiosis, like you said, and post that I got picked on into Dr. Reddy's. I worked in Dr. Reddy's for some time, starting off one of a very interesting project called S-Team. And S-Team was short for scientific team, and DRL at that point of time was kind of moving away from being a very transaction-oriented company towards a science-oriented company. And this team was supposed to be, to be like medical science liaisons, like MSLs, and work with the medical profession on whatever they wanted. So I did a few years of that, and then I moved into product management. Since 2000, I think I've been in product management marketing. I moved out of sales and into marketing. Then I moved from there to Novartis. Was in Novartis for a very short stint, and then moved to Pfizer. So the larger part of my career, out of the 23 or 24 years that I worked in the industry, 16 of them were in Pfizer and GSK. So and of course a little short 6 to 8 months stint in Medtronic in between. So at that point of time, after Pfizer, I was very bored of the pharmaceutical industry, and I wanted to get into devices because I kept reading about all the great work that the devices industry was doing. It was, Medtronic was supposed to be the Apple of healthcare, and so on. So, and I met some very interesting people when I interviewed with them, and so I moved in there. But then, as luck would have it, one of my old friends and colleague moved from Pfizer to GSK, and he was setting up an international team in India, the Center of Excellence. And so he asked me to come there, and that was an offer I couldn't refuse, because it would give me a much larger, broader stage to operate in, to work in the emerging markets area, to understand the pharma industry beyond India. And so I kind of landed there. And then 6 to 7 years into GSK, then I finally decided that I think enough is enough. I had made a promise to myself at a very young age that I would retire by 45. And retire doesn't mean stop working, but it basically means that you work for yourself. You chase a dream, or you follow your passion or something, and that's what I'm doing. So I was lucky that digital marketing was coming up as a very interesting era, a very interesting stage at that point of time. And so I decided that, and I was fortunate that in GSK, my last assignment was kind of trying to help markets to transform digitally. We had a mandate from leadership. GSK has been slightly ahead of the curve in terms of digital uptake, and we were trying to convince markets and country managers that digital is the way to go, and probably you need to be spending some time over there, and so on and so forth. And I decided that why limit it to GSK? Why not open it up to the whole industry? And that's what I've been doing from 2017. So once I left the rat race, I became it allowed me to do a lot of different things that I always wanted to do, but I couldn't because formal employment restricts or limits you from doing certain things. So I was teaching in NMIMS anyway. Since 2014, I've been teaching in NMIMS. But apart from that, I always wanted to write a book, and I co-authored a book. I haven't written one myself, but I co-authored a book. I've then invested a little money in a few companies that are operating in cutting edge areas. One in big data, one in social selling, one in digital therapeutics, and one in nutrition. So these are all upcoming areas in the healthcare world, and I want to speak about all these areas as we go into the conversation. And then, so I'm a part-time academic, I'm a part-time author, I'm a part-time consultant, and I'm a part-time investor. So that's what I do at this point of time.
Yeah, great to hear, Mr. Salil, your journey, and I think it gives goosebumps to me, and I'm sure to the entire audience who all are listening to you. So how did you manage? So I have this question, and I'm sure many of the people who are there in this show today, they will must be having the same question, that how you started probably on the ground level, and how could you manage to do all of these things probably in one lifetime, in like 20 years or so? How could you do that, and what would be your secret to doing all these things? Because people most of the people, I am sure, would not be able to dream of doing all these things in one lifetime. So just wanted to know, how did you actually manage to do all of this stuff in this like 25 years or so?
So I'm 48, so I don't think I've probably lived like half a lifetime yet.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, but there are so many things that I haven't done also. For example, I've never run a business. I haven't been a business unit head, or I haven't managed a P&L. Or I've never been a country manager, or somebody who runs sales, operations, distribution, finance, all of that put together. So those were the things that at one point of time they fascinated me, and then later on I realized that however high you rise within an organization, there's always someone going to be above you. So even if you're the global CEO, you still report to the board. So
Right.
you are not in a position of strength, or you don't have the freedom to manage your own decisions, and too much of energy and time is spent in convincing other people, unfortunately. So then I decided that it's better that I get out and be my own boss, so to speak, and try and do this. But I think it'll be very nice of me to say that that I think it'll be right of me, not nice of me, it'll be right of me to say that if I have, like Isaac Newton said something. Isaac Newton said that if he has seen further than the rest of humanity, it is because he stands on the shoulders of giants. And it is largely because of that. And I think of myself also as very fortunate to have worked with some wonderful people in the industry who had faith in me at those particular times, and were happy to give me a great amount of support, a great amount of opportunities to do things slightly different. I will never forget my time in Dr. Reddy's, where I learned something completely different. My time in Serdia, where my first boss was, he was more like a father figure than a manager, although we were almost of the same age. And from there on, then Pfizer and GSK. So we had opportunities, and Medtronic, not to forget Medtronic, right? So a very different kind of experience that happened when I moved into the medical industry, into the devices industry. So overall, it's about trying to push the boundaries. It's trying to think about how you can do the same thing differently. And as I moved both roles and organizations, there were I used to get picked because I had experience in a particular TA or a particular portfolio of products or something like that. So, but every time you approach the same TA in a different company, you realize that companies are very different in the way they approach things. For example, I was not heading, but I was part of the cardiovascular product management team in Dr. Reddy's. And then I got picked up into Novartis largely because I had an experience in cardiology, and Novartis was foraying into cardiovasculars. But the way Novartis managed the cardiovascular business or approached the whole cardiovascular business was very different from the way Dr. Reddy's did it. And then from Novartis, Pfizer wanted somebody in the cardiovascular space. And so I got an opportunity to join Pfizer. And I happily took that opportunity because it was the largest company in the world at that time, largest pharma company in the world. And then I realized that Pfizer has an absolutely different way of doing things. So it's actually, I was very fortunate that I was able to learn a lot of stuff, all these company cultures, the way they approach it, their way of thinking, their way of execution, and all that I was able to absorb well. And so therefore I think I was very fortunate, and I was in the right place at the right time. That's all I can say.
Yeah, right. I think it's very important to be having those right shoulder, as you pointed out. Initially in your career, throughout your career, these people will help you grow further, and they can expand your horizon. And
Yes.
I can totally relate to it. And most of the people who are there, I think Shriram is also there. Thank you so much, Shriram, for being on this show and being a consistent support for this Sunday live shows. And so I think a lot of people can relate to what you have been saying. And this brings me back to the old memories. So you said that you started in year 93. Okay, so it's been more than 25 years. How do you see the consumer preferences, consumer behavior? They have changed over the years. And what do you see nowadays for most of the sales people who are working in pharmaceutical or medical device industry? Uh, how you have seen the changes over time, and what do you see now?
I think the world has changed drastically. Almost 27 years since 93. At that point of time, communication, for example, was very limited. Right. So I remember, we used to send telegrams to our managers, or some of our managers used to joke about telegrams that they would receive. So there was a colleague in an X station or an outstation somewhere outside based in a territory which was slightly far away from the regional office, who would send a telegram on the first of every month saying, "Send salary or samples immediately." So
Okay.
that was the so that was the way that communication used to happen. 4 words on one strip of paper. And I think that was the way I even communicated with my father when I was in the hostel, when I was doing B Farm. Send money immediately, 3 words, that's it. So that would be because money, used to pay for every word or every letter that
Right.
would go into the telegram. Today, you can send copious amounts of information, videos, whatever you want, on an app called WhatsApp, or Telegram, or any of these things. So, communication per se has drastically changed. And what that has done is it has shrunk the day. The number of hours that you get in a day have reduced so much. And in the sense that you can get so much more done. Your productivity increases so much, because earlier, and so on and so until uh, about 6 months ago, when COVID happened, I used to hate traveling, because Mumbai is a terrible place to drive or to be driven around on. You have a sad excuse for roads, and you have infrastructure coming up in various stages of development all around the place, and that kind of is terrible on commuters. So if I had to go and meet a client in, say, BKC, it would take me 4 hours of the day to commute simply up and down, and 4 hours of the day would be used doing nothing. Or I would use that time to make a few phone calls and whatever else, but not really productive work. Now, post COVID, my office is like 6 feet away from my bed. And and so that gives me such a huge amount of time, and that I can deploy into doing something different. It could be reading, it could be communicating, it could be researching, whatever else that requires. So I think essentially time has expanded, and productivity has expanded because of the way technology has come in. And from that, I think consumers have really changed their thought processes, because when I was a rep, and I'm sure some of my contemporaries will remember this, I used to, if an expense statement used to come, it would take me half a day to go to the bank to encash that expense statement check, because I have to go there, then I have to have one grumpy faced guy standing over there who will give me one token, which is such a big size. And then I would have to, wait in the queue. And then I go out and, chai cigarette on the side, waiting for my number to come. And then by the time I come back, I realize that my number has gone. And then I rejoin the queue and the guy shouts at me, whatever, and it used to take a long amount of time for me to draw my money, right? Today, we don't remember the last time we went to a bank. Right? So everything's happening on the phone. So and more so in the COVID, in the last 6 months, I think a very strong change in consumer psyche has been that they've realized that technology has done away with the whole concept of time and distance. Right? You don't have to go anywhere to get something done. You don't have to go to a bank to get money. You don't have to go to a shop to buy something. You don't have to go to a mall to buy something. You don't have to go to a mall to watch a movie. You don't have to do lots of stuff have changed. And from that perspective, I think three very important things have happened. One is that consumers have understood the whole concept of do it yourself. Yeah, and so therefore this if you extrapolate this to medicine, people have realized the importance of stay at home healthcare, where healthcare can be delivered at home. Some of my colleagues from Medtronic have moved out and started a company which is doing excellent work in home at healthcare. And they are just, it's a growing field. They also, I think they got into this about 3 years ago, which was exactly the right time to do it. And today they are a flourishing business. More and more people are able to understand that healthcare at home is possible. More and more people are able to understand you don't have to go to a hospital to get better. Your doctor can speak to you over the phone in this, and telehealth and all these things have picked up suddenly. So major consumer behavior has happened. Consumer shift has happened in their behavior, and the most important thing that they have realized is that you don't have to go somewhere to get something done. Time and distance is something that has disappeared. Many people ask me whether I think this is a permanent change. And I always tell them I think it is the duration of this pandemic which will decide that. There is some Malcolm Gladwell or some author like that has written that you do something straight for 66 days, and on the 67th day it becomes a part of your life. For me, I've never found that to be true, because even if I walk for 66 days or I do exercise for 66 days, I can very happily let it go on the 67th. But I'm probably one of that 0.5% or whatever, where I'm not really interested in it. But so if the vaccine comes, let's say another 6 months from now, right? The vaccines come 3 months from now, and then it takes another 6 months for mass vaccination to happen and all of that to do. So we're talking about another year. Maybe already 9 months into the whole thing, or 6 months into the whole thing, and then one more year. So 1.5 years is, I think, good enough time for people not to completely shift, but to understand that, I don't have to go out every time I have a cold, I've got a pain in my knee. I don't have to run to the orthopedic guy. Yeah, I can talk to him on the phone. So I think what this will do is it will cleave the society into parts, where there are people who will happily sit at home and get advice, and it will help the doctors also because it controls their crowd in the clinic. The second thing is there will be obviously people who will, if you've broken a bone or you've got an appendix that is bursting, then obviously you can't sit at home. You have to go. So, but what that will do is probably reduce the burden on physical infrastructure. Less number of people will be available at the hospital. So that it'll give the doctors, nurses, and everybody else a little more time with the existing patients, or patients who actually need their help and all that. So I think it's kind of changing for the better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for the elaborative kind of way of explaining last 25 years or so, or how the consumer preferences has changed, and more so over during the COVID times. We all have seen, and even the healthcare delivery has changed. A lot of doctors, even the support staff, they are coming like 3 days in a week, and obviously there are lesser number of patients. More of it is telemedicine, digital health. All these things are picking up. So that brings me to one more question, interesting question about the what happens to us, like people who are there as a sales professional working in this industry. What happens to us? What will happen to our jobs? Because we have also been kind of most of us have been working from home, or it's like a mix of going maybe once or twice in a week to the hospital. Doctors are also not very keen to meet us. So what is our future? What is how the kind of jobs of sales professional in pharmaceutical or medical device industry is going to evolve going forward?
So I think it's a very legitimate question, Pankaj. I think that's a fear that many people have. Many youngsters that I speak to, they always are a little concerned about when the environment is changing, what's going to happen to me. So let me give you two thoughts on this. Right. So first thought is that the same thing happened to the banking industry in the 2000s, right? And this was a time that I was very happy about the fact that I no longer needed to go to the bank and wait for my expense statement to get cashed, because I could deposit it in an ATM and draw the money right away. So digitalization, as it started to come in, as technology started to get embedded into banking systems, and the industry became more customer focused, people started to worry about the fact that technology will take jobs away, and that lesser number of humans are required in an area where earlier people would have been required. But if you see, those fears started to become, they were baseless, because over the last 20 years, from 2000 to 2020, the banking industry actually employs 43% more people than it employed in 2000, right? Are those people doing the same kind of jobs that they were doing in 2000? No. But have jobs gone away? No. Right. So what will happen is jobs will will evolve into something better. It that better is debatable. For me and you, it might look better, but for somebody who's not comfortable doing something different, it might not look better. But the fact of the matter is, it gives you a chance to learn new skills. It gives you a chance to serve the customers in a better way. It gives you a chance to utilize technology to be able to create a better service model for patients or whatever. So the whole idea over there is that jobs will not get lost, but jobs will evolve into something else, and that then brings the onus of skilling and knowledge and information. How do I keep updated? So sales is a part of the organization that I think is it's irreplaceable. How can you tell me one organization that does not market? No, everybody markets, right? From the day you are born, you're essentially selling yourself, right? The
Absolutely.
first time you cry is when your mother realizes that you need milk, right? And that's essentially a give and a take. So over there, I'm sorry, I'm debasing a very, very emotional situation, but if you kind of strip the emotion out of it, you see that it is nothing but selling. And how many times have your bosses in sales told you that a crying baby gets milk? So that's an adage that is quite a favorite with sales leaders. So I thought I'll use that. And another point that I wanted to say. So the first point is that jobs don't go away; jobs will evolve into something different, right? And that requires skilling and all that, which I think we should talk in detail about. The other point is that there is a very famous management guru called Peter Drucker, and Peter Drucker very famously said, there are lots of his quotes that we profs and academics guys used to like to throw around all the time, right? So Peter Drucker said something very interesting. He said a firm or a company has essentially two functions. One is innovation, and the second one is marketing. Okay, marketing doesn't mean sitting in the office and creating a visual aid. Marketing essentially means selling, right? So innovation, why does a company need to innovate? To stay relevant with its customers, right? To be constantly competing in the marketplace. If it stops innovating, competitors innovate or bring in better products than them, and the company goes bankrupt. The second part of that is, how do I take that innovation to the market? How do I convince customers to pay money for that innovation? Yeah. And if I am not able to do that, then I'm not in a business. Then I'm sitting in a laboratory somewhere and innovating for the sake of innovating, and no one likes to do that, because innovating also costs money, right? And I have to recover that money. And therefore sales and marketing is an irreplaceable part of an organization. So I don't think people should be worried about the fact that, will I lose my job? Will sales become less relevant? Will everything be managed from HO? will there not be this? All those things I think are completely unfounded. Okay, at this point of time, it may not look so, but 1 year down the line, I'm sure you'll be agreeing with what I'm saying. Also, I think the pharmaceutical, one last point on this topic, I think the pharmaceutical industry and the medical devices industry have something that every other industry will give a hand and a leg for, and that is personal relationship. I don't think Vodafone has the kind of relationship with its customers that you and I have, right? Or any other organization, an airline, a textile company, a retailer. Nobody has the kind of relationship that a pharmaceutical industry has with it, because people are on first name basis with salespeople, right? Doctors are on first name basis. They invite them into their house, they invite them into their clubs, they invite them for dinner, for drinks. They sit and joke with them. They have fun. They're like friends. People of a certain age. Obviously, senior doctors will not do that, but then junior doctors will do. So why would an organization give up on this competitive advantage? When personal relationship, which is entirely managed by the sales force, and we've seen that when people leave the organization, relationships go with them.
Right.
Yeah, so these are important. These are competitive advantages for a company, and I don't think that an organization will actually want to do away with it. So these 3 points I wanted to say about, don't worry about the fact that my job will go. What's the impact on me? I think it'll always turn out to be the better.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Salil, for explaining this. And guys, I would request you to, if you have any fear or what do you think about your jobs going to change, just put them in the chat window so that we know and we can take on those comments. People who are there in YouTube live as well, you guys can post your queries, comments. What do you think about your jobs? How do you have any fear, or what do you think how it is going to evolve? Just keep sharing your comments in the chat window, and we will be taking your question. And if you also have any question, just keep posting there. We will be taking your question as well in the end. So moving forward, Mr. Salil, as you explained that yes, relevant skills need to be built and the jobs are going to evolve. Okay, so if I am as a sales professional, what kind of skills do I need to build right now so that I am ready for the future? Because as you said, 6 months have already gone into this kind of work from home environment, and probably another year or so is also be more or less on the similar lines. Okay, and what would be the future, we do not know. So what can I as a sales representative I can do today to stay relevant for the future?
So I think to do anything, this is a time of transformation, right? That is not lost on anybody. That things are changing, and the future is not going to be an extension of the past. So we need to stop thinking that everything will go back to normal just like it was earlier, and sab kuch theek ho jayega. Aisa nahi. I'm not saying that it will not, but what will happen is it'll set something like a new normal. That's why we don't call it a post-COVID era. We call it a new normal, right? So the future is going to be something which will go back to normal, but it might be something very, like we said, how many patients are actually going to go to the doctor, how many doctors will actually ask patients to come there, to come to their clinics and all that. And this is not something that is unfounded. It's not like science fiction. This is happening very much everywhere around the world. So you must have heard of a company or a hospital called Mercy Virtual, right? Mercy Virtual is the world's largest telemedicine center, right? It's a 200 bedded hospital with no patients. So it's a size of a hospital which is like 200 beds. They have all the doctors, all the paramedical staff, but what they have is Cisco screens. They have telehealth, teleconsulting screens, and what they do is they advise their patients from home. The patients call up from home and they talk to them, and this is a full-fledged business model which has been running for a long time, for about 7 or 8 years. So this is not like it can't happen. That model will get probably extended over here. So what does it mean for us? I think for pharma and device salespeople, I think the most important thing that we need to do is to stop thinking or think less about our product and think more about our customer, right? And we need to be able to move from being very product centric, which is nothing but my brand, my prescription, my market share, to what do you want, doctor? What can I do to help you? Right. So let me give you an example here. When this whole thing was happening in April and May, I was very curious to understand, how things are changing. And I would talk to some of my friends who are doctors, and doctors would say, we require, I'm really scared about the fact that I haven't been able to connect with my patients for about 2 to 3 weeks now. in April and all, they were quite worried about that. Patient nahi aa rahe, main kisi se baat nahi kar raha hu. I think there's a little bit of a trouble here. I hope my patients are fine. I hope they haven't gone away to another doctor, because doctor shopping is a very common experience in India, right? And I wish there would be something that could come up which will help me to connect with my patient. And at that point of time, the medical reps were, the reps who were connecting with the doctors were all about, doctor, please prescribe my product. Doctor, please attend my webinar. Doctor, please, think about my brand. A dear doctor, one of the doctors forwarded a letter to me on WhatsApp, which he received on WhatsApp, which said, dear doctor, we are very grateful to you because, you are at the front line of fighting Corona. You're one of our frontline warriors. And what you have been doing is letting me sleep peacefully in my bed. Thank you for fighting the war for us, and so on and so forth, from the makers of brand X, brand Y, brand Z. Right now, a beautiful message like that, which is very topical, very doctor centric, is completely spoiled because you think of that also as a brand push exercise. Right now, that brand push exercise is not so. What is the doctor thinking? The doctor is thinking, what's happening to my patients? Mera dhanda chaupat ho gaya hai. No one's coming into my clinic. My cash flows are going back to zero. How do I manage the whole situation? And at that point of time, if a rep comes and says, sir, please prescribe, please prescribe, please prescribe, how is the doctor going to feel? So I think that's the first thing that we need to change. Right? We need to think more about the doctor. Empathy is required. Okay. And that empathy essentially, and I don't blame the medical reps for this. I don't blame the frontline people for this, because this is what their companies expect them to do. It's nothing but their job. This is something like, as the lockdown got extended in mid-March, what would let's say during the lockdown, there is one gentleman who's going to a shop to buy cooking oil, and another gentleman carrying a can of petrol to going to burn that shop. How do the cops differentiate between these two? They don't. So even the guy who's going to go to the market to buy cooking oil for his home gets the danda on his backside, while an arsonist who is trying to go down to burn that shop also gets the danda on his backside. So what do you blame cops for this? How does this behavior come across? This behavior comes across as ridiculous, right? Why are these guys not able to differentiate? I think that's quite a lot. Why? Because the cops are not trained to do anything else. How are they supposed to manage a curfew? By hitting anybody they see who comes out on the road, right? And there is absolutely no empathy there. There's no compassion. There's nothing to understand what they're doing. I'm not saying everyone's like that. There are cops who will help out. The same thing applies to our salespeople also. There are many people who understand that they have to listen to doctors, they have to empathize with those guys, they have to co-create some programs with them and all that. That realization came a little late into the situation, right? So that's one. I think that's one very important aspect that you need to change. The second thing is our mechanism of or our mediums of connect are very different, right? We are connecting over a phone, we are connecting over a webinar, we are connecting where a large level of impersonalization comes into the relationship. We are not trained for that. Right? We are trained to stand in front of the doctor or sit across the table with him and talk to him on a one-on-one basis. And as you know, 93% of communication is non-verbal. Right? Only 7% of words is understood. Communication happens through words. And in an impersonal medium, even if you use one wrong word, it can completely spoil the message. And so therefore the etiquette of impersonal communication. A busy doctor, how can I communicate with him effectively in 30 seconds? Not a brand push, but talk to him, build a relation with him, right? So that's how these call center guys they operate. They're trained on how to do all these, teleselling and all that. That's a different level of skill. So I think that's one sort of a skill that we need to be able to build. Another skill that we need to be able to build is, how do I know what impresses my doctor? Earlier, I would talk to him, I would be with him, I was his friend, I used to be, I used to know what he was telling me. Today, I don't have that kind of time. Neither the doctor nor I have that kind of time, because there's impersonality, right? I'm sitting in my office and making a call, or I'm sitting at home and making a call. And the doctor is not going to be sitting around and talking politics with me, for example, right? Kaam se kaam rakhega wo. So there, how does my ability to keep my content relevant, how am I able to do that? If the message that I'm giving to the doctor is not relevant to what he wants, I am not able to communicate, right? I will never be able to build a relationship with him. For that, I need data streams, right? I need analytical tools. I need to have either a closed loop marketing system within my organization, through which the iPad that I'm using to detail, that basically puts back the amount of information that I feed into it, comes back through an analytical tool with like a dashboard. And it says that, this is where the doctor is operating on the adoption funnel. Like, he's at an awareness stage. Now I have to give him an interest message. Then I have to give him a desire message. I have to give him an action message, so on and so forth. To be able to understand all of this, it requires a little bit of a little bit of digital maturity within us. And the fourth and the most important thing, I think, is the decentralization of power. Because today we are not in a situation where we can connect with our managers or with office on a daily basis. Everybody is kind of chaotic. There's a lot of stuff that is happening. I am supposed to manage my dhanda from my own home. Yeah, no one's going to come from elsewhere and kind of give me some support or anything like that. Support aaya to bonus hai. I'm left on my own, right? How am I able to manage this? How can I be smart enough to understand what decisions to take? What kind of very precise support mechanisms can I write back to office asking for, which will help me to build my connection with my customers or my relationship with my customers? So these are things I think are very, very in your face changes that are happening for the sales managers work or the sales leadership work at the ground level, where customer is, where the relationship is moving into a more impersonal relationship than it was in the past.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You're bang on with regards to the skills, I think, which one need to have in the digital era. And most of it is also regarding the framing the right communication is very important for sales professionals. And I see the shift is happening now also, even in the COVID times. Earlier, most of the sales rep, if sales rep are from pharma, they used to get maybe from 30 seconds to anywhere 10 minutes maximum. Okay, and most of the calls used to be like 1 minute or 2 minutes kind of calls, or maximum 5 minutes for a good multinational, or if you have something relevant to talk. Nowadays doctors are having all the time in the world. Okay, so doctors are giving like 20 minutes
Yeah.
to the minimum, and
Yeah.
maximum probably can be an hour or an hour and a half as well. Okay,
Okay.
so what problem I see in my interaction with most of the sales rep is they do not have the content to talk for a half an hour.
Ha.
Okay, so how do they build that kind of skill set? What kind of things which they can talk in this half an hour or 1 hour, uh,
Yes.
which is relevant as well, and which makes sense as well for the doctors?
Excellent point, Pankaj. Excellent point. And this is something that we used to always ask our teams. One of the favorite complaints from pharma sales reps was, in the cycle meetings, they would say that doctor time hi nahi deta.
Right.
So we used to develop a scenario and say, अगर डॉक्टर ने टाइम दे दिया तो आप क्या करोगे? कितना बात करोगे? कितना टाइम चाहिए आपको? Let's say अनलिमिटेड टाइम है, आप क्या बात करोगे? Beyond 2 minutes or 3 minutes, it's very difficult for you, because your only thought process is my brand, my brand, my brand, my brand. I have a detailing story that I have learnt by heart, and I'm able to parrot that out. Yeah, so that's like 2 minutes or 3 minutes or something. Beyond that, what do I say? Beyond that,
Right.
I'm not, because my pharma sales model is essentially show and tell.
Right.
Right, I have to be present in front of the doctor, and I have to simply tell him naam batao, daam batao. That's our mostly, doctors are very clear. ज्यादा टाइम नहीं है, 30 सेकंड देता हूँ, नाम बताओ, दाम बताओ, कितने ब्रांड बोलना है, 3 ब्रांड बोलो, 4 ब्रांड बोलो, और बाहर निकल जाओ. Right now, suddenly, if that has changed, and like you said, doctors have a lot of time on their hand, the onus falls back on a medical rep to be able to manage that time well. And unfortunately, there, he has very little support from marketing or from anyone else in the organization, and therefore there is a need for you to be able to manage that on your own, or ask for specific help. Right, you write back to your product management team and say that, I require some additional content or material which I'm able to talk with this doctor, because he's given me an hour of his time or something like that. So yeah, that's, those are very interesting changes that are happening in the environment today.
Right, absolutely. So I think being prepared with beforehand is the key to have those kind of relevant discussion, and don't kind of make yourself a fool out of that call is very important. So guys, I think the request and the suggestion is obviously to be prepared, and be prepared not only with your products, and be prepared with everything which you have to talk and which makes sense. So think from a doctor's perspective, put yourself in the doctor's shoe, and then start thinking and start preparing. And I think that is the key. Apart from this, Salil, I have seen a lot of changes in the macro environment which is also happening apart from this digital which is coming up, but we see a lot of consolidation is happening in the healthcare space, be it the pharmaceutical or medtech companies, or be it the healthcare providers. A lot of hospitals are getting, like, these are the times of mergers and acquisition. A lot of private equity venture capitalists are coming up, especially in the Indian healthcare environment. So how do you see, and like consolidation is happening at the hospital level as well. A lot of hospitals are getting merged, and now, like, uh, purchase decisions are based on from a one centralized unit for most of the hospitals. So how do you see kind of what kind of new relevant skill set, so what are those changes according to you which you feel which are happening, and how, what kind of new skill set for these kind of changes like consolidation, merger and acquisition, private equity players coming up? So how do a sales rep need to, is it like a negotiation skill, business development skill? What are those new skill which one need to acquire so that they are able to take on those kind of big players going forward?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Pankaj. So, that's something that is happening in the environment, but very few people are actually taking note of it, right? Or even if they are taking note of it, they are unable to understand the relevance of it on their industry, in the industry that they work for. So, a couple of things that are happening that I see is that more and more companies that are coming into the healthcare space are using technology. They are basically tech companies. They are not tech companies, or they're not like typically the coders and all those guys, but they are essentially healthcare companies which have realized that technology is required. Technology is required to be able to serve the market. Now, this realization has come from a position that they realize that the healthcare industry is all about service. What do you do to a sick person, or what do you do to somebody who is having a pain or an ache or something like that? Giving medicine is just one part of it, right? A pill, a medicine, or a device or something is just one part of it. It's a one-time activity. What happens to the patient after that and before that, right? That's a very important part of service. So the biggest problem in the healthcare area is one of information asymmetry, which means that the buyer knows lesser than the seller, right? So the seller is always, I have more understanding about my product than the aam aadmi, and the regulations are shaped in such a way that I cannot pass on that amount of information to them, right? And so therefore, the what has resulted out of it is that patients have started to, or started matlab, patients are put in a position where they deify doctors, right? They put the doctor on a pedestal and worship him. Why? Because the doctor always knows more about their condition than they do, and they have no other option but to trust what the doctor is saying. And as that trust develops, it basically turns into a level of respect which is unseen in any other sector, right? Now, what these new health companies have done is they've realized that they have to break that problem. They have to solve that problem, information asymmetry, right? So what they do is they have restarted to reach out to patients with a lot of information on disease, on managing the disease, on the products that are available. And what they are doing is essentially giving more choice to the patient, right? And so if you go to a 1mg site and you write the name of a medicine that you have been prescribed, 10 other options come up. And there are explanations for each of those, and you are told that, this is price range is there. When I do not know anything about that medicine, I will obviously base my decision on price, right? And therefore this has led pharma, instead of pharma trying to break this whole thing and kind of serving the patient and helping them to make an informed decision, has gone exactly the other way and has started to fight on the price battle, right? So we're increasingly working into moving into a commoditized market than creating a blue ocean of services or something else, and that is essentially something that these guys, the newer companies, have understood this. So now what they've understood is that a patient or a person requires much more than just a medicine. And so the kind of things that are happening, these companies are not just medicine providers. So 1mg, for example, is not just a medicine provider. They have patient counseling, they have healthcare at home, they have diagnostics, they have insurance, they have doctors, they have everything else that is required to take care of you. Right now, when and that is coming at a cost which is very, very cheap. which is a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription. CureFit, for example, another company which started off with gyms, then went into healthy food, then went into mental fitness, then went into wearables and sensors, then went into primary healthcare consultation, teleconsultation. Now is going into hospitals, then is going into healthcare at home, then will go into something else completely. So it completes the whole loop of all the services of products and services that are required for a person who is fighting with an illness or is trying to keep himself fit or whatever. So the newer companies that are coming up are giving a lot more than what pharma and medical device companies typically give, because we are very product oriented here. We are not thinking about the patient and not trying to create better and better products for that patient or better and better services for that patient. So the entry of Reliance, the entry of Amazon, the entry of Google, the entry of CureFit, these have to be seen in this context. And what will happen is that these companies, therefore, being in a serving model, in a service model, they realize that they require technology more than anybody else. Why has pharma or devices never understood the reason for technology? Because we don't serve at scale. For us, our 5,000 doctors or our 50,000 patients is more than enough for us to meet this year's target. Right? We forget that there is a whole world outside of that. Right? And that therefore we are very myopic in our or limited in our ambition. Our market business growths are not more than, if you're growing at 8% and next year your boss tells you to grow at 10%, you'll throw a fit. कैसे grow करूंगा मैं 8-10%? These companies, the newer companies that are coming in, are growing at 40%, 50%, 60%, 140% every year. And so therefore they use technology to acquire customer bases which are in the millions. So while pharma thinks about 5,000 doctors, Google is thinking about 50% of the Earth's population. How do I go from 2.5 billion to 4 billion or to 7 billion or to 8 billion? So therefore I require internet to be created and all that. So they have a very different outlook. And that's the way, those companies are coming into pharma and healthcare in India. So you can imagine how differently they think versus how we are thinking. Now, are we in a capability? Do we have the capability to fight these guys? In my opinion, in the current form, no, we don't. Right? And if you think that pharma and devices are very profitable companies and all that, let me give you one statistic just to compare. Right? The global pharmaceutical industry is $1.3 trillion. Okay? Apple alone is $2 trillion. Right? One company is almost 2 times the size of the entire pharmaceutical market. So if we think that we are profitable and we have cash flows, we have no idea what these guys are. Their scale is unimaginable. They have sizes. Their companies are the sizes of countries' GDPs. Apple is bigger than, I think, some 120 countries in the world. Only 3 or 4 countries are larger than Apple in size. So they are that big. Now, those kind of players coming into healthcare and creating service models in an area where we are not even thinking. Imagine the sort of disruption that can happen there. And my opinion is that these companies, when they form, they will require pharma to only supply medicine to them. That's it. Everything else will be given from their side. Right? So, aap mere ko dawai de do, bas. Now, let me, whenever I say this, people say that आप ओवर रिएक्ट कर रहे हो यार, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है, ऐसा नहीं होता है, ऐसा, because we have 23,000 pharma companies in India and all that. Now those 23,000 pharma companies, let me tell you, I have been, during my stint in Mexico, in Latin America, we were setting up the whole generic distribution system there, and so we cracked a deal with Walmart. Okay, Walmart was one of the largest suppliers of medicine there. They have a group of pharmacies called Walgreens, right? And we cracked a deal with them. The deal was so good that GSK actually had to create a new factory to supply to them. The volume was that high. But our GCs came into the single digits. Yeah, margins went from 70-80% to less than 10%. Now, if that sort of consolidation happens, why does that happen? Because they have bargaining power, they have size, they have economy of scale. Right? And when it comes down to that level of bargaining, how many companies do you think will survive on a margin that is less than 10%? Yeah, so those 23,000 pharma companies will very quickly become 23 companies. Yeah, and those 23 might become 2.5 over a period of time. Large companies which are only manufacturing. right? And that brings me to your point about VC and PE capital, right? Private equity capital and venture capital. Where are those guys investing? They are investing in CDMOs, right? Contract manufacturers. So JB Chemicals got picked up by KKR. There are other companies where a lot of PE capital is coming in and all that, right? So Economic Times ran an article where they were talking about how much capital is coming into contract manufacturing organizations. Why would they want to invest in manufacturing? Because India has the capacity, and Deloitte recently released a report which said that India has the capacity to become $100 billion pharma manufacturing industry. They didn't say serving patients, right? $100 billion in manufacturing, and that's where the money is going in. So the money is not, investments are not happening on customer relationship. It is not happening on patient engagement. It is not happening on services. It's happening entirely on the back end, on the upstream activity. Right. So how do I get the state of the art manufacturing facilities? How can I have today, for example, if I have 50 factories in India, how can I make them 500 factories? How can I get scale? Either I build them or I buy another company that has another 50 factories. So that's how acquisitions will happen. That's how consolidation happens. And over a period of time, all that manufacturing is going to lead to what? An increase in exports, an increased supply to these guys where the whole system will move towards generic. So the power of the brand erodes. Yeah. Walmart, when they bought from GSK, they never allowed us to give our packing. They specified the packs in which we have to give, so it was salbutamol. Walgreens, salbutamol. It was not Ventolin, or it was not Seretide, or it was not our own brands, so those are called in retail, they are called as private labels or white label brands. You must have seen this in Big Basket. आप तूर दाल ऑर्डर करोगे तो बिग बास्केट का ब्रांड आता है. वो दूसरा किसी का आटा ऑर्डर करोगे तो बिग बास्केट का आएगा. वो आईटीसी का ब्रांड नहीं प्रमोट करेगा. So similarly, वो फाइजर का ब्रांड नहीं प्रमोट करने वाला या जीएसके का ब्रांड नहीं प्रमोट करेगा. He will put his own brand name there and he will say Geo Pharmacy का salbutamol ले लो. And those will be given to him. I don't know whether Glaxo will supply. It might come from Cipla, it might come from a manufacturing plant in Baddi, or it might come from anywhere. So there's that level of disruption. When that happens over a period of the next 3 to 5 years, the whole structure will change. What is pharma doing and what are medical device companies doing today? We are putting the doctor on a pedestal and उसके सामने प्रणाम करते हैं हम लोग. सर प्लीज लिखिए सर, आप नहीं हो, आप मेरे माई बाप हो, अगर आप नहीं लिखोगे तो मेरा धंधा जाएगा. Right? We still believe that the doctor is the number one and the only stakeholder that we have. When the power of the brand is eroding, the power is going to who? To the retailer. Right? That today the retailer is able to substitute. In GSK, we had done a survey which said that about 40%, and this was in 2015, right? It was 40% of our brands were getting substituted. Matlab, 10 prescriptions get generated from the hard work of our colleagues in the field. 4 of them are lost. 4 out of 10. It's a huge vacuum. How do you cover up for that? That means if you are actually growing at 8%, you're not growing at 8, you're growing at 48%, right? Because you're covering up for that 40 and then growing 8% over that. So that's the sort of strain that comes onto our people. Today volume is not a growth factor of the pharmaceutical industry. But do you think lesser medicines are being sold? No. Why is volume under pressure? Because that volume is shifting to the other companies, to the contract manufacturing companies, not to the pharma giants. They are not getting it. So we have to be very clear about how we will participate in this whole thing. When all these macro shifts are happening in the environment, what happens to pharma tomorrow? Are we happy to be a supplier of medicine? Then why do we waste so much of money on building brands? Or why do we chase our brands? We shouldn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for giving these relevant examples. I could also now, when I look back and I saw when I visited Walgreens store last year, and I nowadays we see in even in Apollo Pharmacy, like they have most
Yes.
of the medicine, they have their own brand
Own
names,
names.
most of the
Yes.
products, yeah. And even on Walgreens, as you mentioned, I've seen that happening. So you thank you so much for opening up the entire horizon for all of us. I think you have summed up brilliantly in terms of what are the changes which are happening and how our jobs are going to evolve. And so that brings me to the last questions of this one-on-one session, and then we will take on the audience question.
Yes.
My last question is, because a lot of people ask me, like, especially during the lockdown. Okay, so most of us have been working from home, and most of us have been a lot of time in our hand. And so what I have seen with most of the people, especially in pharma and medical devices, a lot of people are busy in collecting these certificates. Okay, like कल को मैं यहाँ से सर्टिफिकेट ये ले लेता
Uh,
हूँ, कोर्सेरा से ले लेता हूँ, लिंक्डइन लर्निंग. So a lot of people are collecting these certificates. So do you think these certificates are going to help in terms of building their relevant skill? If yes, what kind of those kind of courses they should do, or where they should put their money on?
Wonderful question. This is very, very relevant. So I completely agree, right? So I have also seen many people, putting up a certificate that they got from Google or from some course and saying and feeling pretty happy about it. Now, I am a very strong supporter of learning. I'm a very strong supporter of skill development, of personal development, right? So I will never say that it's a bad thing. I completely stand with them when they are, they're trying to get themselves skilled up, they're trying to acquire different understanding and information and all that. It's a great thing to do. What my concern sometimes is that people get carried away with buzzwords, when all the buzzwords that you hear, so when you're talking about technology, you're constantly hearing things like artificial intelligence or machine learning or deep learning or deep analytics or things like this, and everybody begins to believe that those are important tactics for us, right? Or for example, I do a course on search engine optimization. Am I ever going to use that in my marketing? I am not allowed to market to patients, right? Search engine optimization is a very consumer marketing tactic. In pharma, applicability is limited. Do I have a website that I am promoting? I am not an internet based business, right? SEOs become important, search engine optimization becomes important when I am doing my business online. Am I running an e-commerce store? I'm not doing that. Am I do I have websites that I'm promoting to my customers? No, I'm not doing that. So what is the relevance of SEO in pharma? Limited. To know about it, very good, but to expect that I will get a certificate in that and that will further my career prospects, no, right? The same thing in AI, ML, deep learning, analytics, so on and so forth, right? You need to be then prepared to take up a completely different career option. If you excel in analytics, and if this is something that you want to focus your career on, by all means, please do, right? It's a great place to be in. But if you are a medical rep today aspiring to become a product manager tomorrow, and you think that knowing AI, ML and deep learning is going to work for you, please mark my words, the people sitting on the interview panel will not know anything about it, right? So आपके जानने से उसमें वहां पे आपको कोई एडवांटेज नहीं मिलेगा. You need to learn skills about what are relevant for your job. What is the job that you're aspiring for? If you're aspiring for a job in marketing, learn more about marketing. You know, marketing is going to stay the same. Digital marketing, the principles are nowhere different. They are all the same. You still have the same segmentation, you have the same targeting, you have the same positioning, you have the same content, you have the same customer centricity. Everything about marketing is the same, offline versus online. It's only the medium that changes, right? So knowing more about marketing, understanding and building skills in areas where you become a very good marketeer, you understand the concepts of marketing really well, and you are able to apply it to a brand that you will be entrusted with, that will help you further your career tremendously. Because as a marketeer in a pharmaceutical company, I don't think you will be expected to analyze data in the sense, the kind of customer data that analytics teaches you, right? you will get you'll get dashboards, you get reports which are made by the analytics department. There are other people who are skilled in that area sitting over there to do this for you, right? If you want to join that team, by all means go ahead and do analytics. But if you don't, if you want to be a marketing manager or a product manager or a sales manager or something like that, think about what skills will be irrelevant. Okay, probably doing a course on segmentation, targeting and positioning will not look sexy on your resume. Okay, but believe me, it will give you much more returns in your career, in your chosen career path, than knowing something about artificial intelligence. When I started off my career as my new chapter as a digital consultant, in 2017, when I started meeting people in companies, websites were the in thing. Can you make one website for me? That used to be considered to be a great achievement by a product manager. Okay, In 2018, it became apps. मेरे को ऐप बना के दो, आई वांट टू क्रिएट एन ऐप. क्यों बनाना है ऐप, नहीं वो सोचते हैं, लेकिन आप ऐप बना सकते हो ना, वो बताओ मेरे को. Can you make an app? Yes, I can make an app. What do you want the app for? That I will think about it. So there's no strategy there. App buzzword looks nice on my resume. Let me create an app. Maybe my VP is going to be happy because I made an app. That's not the way to go, right? You need to go from your strategy. What's your strategy? What are you going to do? In 2019, apps moved to artificial intelligence. Can you make a chatbot for me? Why do you need a chatbot? Who's talking to you? Who's going to communicate to you on a website? Do you have a 24/7 team that will manage this? Are you going to encourage, because many times when we used to create social media, when we were told, when you create a social media campaign, people used to ask us to disable comments. Negative comment अगर आ गया तो कौन करेगा? अगर AER report हो गया उसके ऊपर तो कौन करेगा? Who's responsible for this? I don't want to get into all of that. I just want to push my message, right? That's typically our style. We push content. Now, if I'm not able to do that, if I'm not conversing, if I'm not engaging my customers, then why do I need a chatbot? Who's going to come and ask a question on a chatbot? It doesn't make any sense. So I think it's important to understand the basics, get the basics right. And you're at a very early stage in your career, I assume, right? You may have a few years in sales. You may be interested in making a shift to another industry, or you may be interested in moving into a different function like marketing or HR or something like that. Make sure that you understand the basics of that very well. And that is what will take you into the future. Once you understand the basics, technology is just a medium. It's just it comes very late into the equation. You have to get your strategy right. You have to understand your fundamentals right, and then think about what technology does.
Right, absolutely. I think you mentioned it pretty well that whatever skills you pick up, whatever courses you do, whatever learnings you have, make sure those are in alignment with your long-term goals. What do you
Yes.
really want to do in your career? They have to be in alignment. Otherwise, there is no point of picking up certificates, because I also see a lot of certificates being flashed out in LinkedIn or other social media platform. Make sure that whatever time you are investing in, whatever money you are putting in, that make that count for
Yes.
you. Okay, so
Yes.
that is very important. So I think that brings me to the end of the question answer from my end. Now we will take on the question and comments from the people who are there. So let's start from YouTube. Let me take one question. A lot of people are there, still there after 1 hour. Even like about 32 people are there on YouTube. Good to see you guys. So guys, if you have any question, any comment to make, please keep putting in the chat window. So we will be taking your question one on one. So let me take one question from YouTube live. So Priyanshi Bhatt is asking, sir, I read that branded drugs are not given without the prescription of a doctor. But if doctor keeps on prescribing ethical drugs, how come generic drugs are the ones having a huge sale?
Yes, it's a brilliant question. That's a great question. That is what exactly I was telling you, right? And
Yeah.
that is because the whole power of the prescription has moved beyond the doctors, or is gradually moving. It's not that doctors are going to be irrelevant, right? Doctors will continue because they are the ones who have the clinical expertise of diagnosis, deciding the treatment, and advising the correct medication for that. So doctors will always be required. In India today, doctors operate as independent entities. Okay. Now, if you have experience of meeting doctors in corporate hospitals, you will know that doctors in corporate hospitals don't have the freedom to prescribe a brand of their choice, right? It is the purchase guys in the hospital who decide on which medicines to procure. Tenders are given out, and those brands, there are 4 or 5 brands that are procured, and the doctor is given a list of those brands and is told that ये brands हैं इस molecule में, आप इन्हीं में से किसी को prescribe करो, या तो वो हॉस्पिटल के जो प्रिस्क्रिप्शन सॉफ्टवेयर में वो ऑटोमेटिकली वो ब्रांड्स एंटर हो जाते हैं, एंड द डॉक्टर हैज नो चॉइस ओवर देयर, राइट? नाउ in the new world, imagine that this is what will happen at scale. As these large companies start to acquire all these hospitals and doctors and all these things, they will essentially tell the doctor what to write. So the prescription power is moving away from the doctor, right? And today also, what happens, even when there's a fragmented doctor, so you go to a private clinic, a doctor prescribes a brand, you come out and you go to a chemist shop, and you talk to the chemist and you say, मेरे को ये दवाई दे दो. The guy gives you. आपने सिर्फ वो strip उठा के इतना बोलना है, बाप रे बाप, ये तो बहुत महंगा हो गया. Bas, that's it. Immediately, the chemist will pick out 4 or 5 additional boxes of medicines and put it on the counter for you, and he'll say, same दवाई है, अलग company है. सस्ता चाहिए था आपको, ये सस्ता, ये इसका इतना दाम है, इसका इतना दाम है, and then you have a choice, right? You make the choice. So who's making the choice there? Is the doctor making the choice? No, it's you. And the chemist is influencing it, right? So the prescription power is moving away and away and away. Now imagine that generics will come in. Today there is not much of a trust that is there on generics. So because if a trade generic box is picked up and is put alongside a box of medicines which is made by Cipla, Lupin, Sun Pharma, Pfizer, GSK, etc., that box will look very different, right? It will not give you a confidence that this is a good brand, because the packaging there's not much focus on the packaging, there's not much focus on color and all that. If you see DRL boxes or if you see Glenmark boxes, they're very attractive, branded generics. So when you are asked that would you like to take this generic, it is only 10 paisa versus the 10 rupees of a tablet, you may not want to do that, right? Because you will feel that it is something that is probably inferior, quality is an issue. But if that box was to be picked up by, like Pankaj said, Walgreens, or Geo Pharma, and it would get the same sort of packing that a Glenmark will do, because Glenmark only will be supplying to these guys, right? They will give it a nice packaging, they'll give it a nice, they won't price it at 10 paisa, they'll probably price it at 15 paisa or 20 paisa or something like that. And because it's got Reliance there, it's got Cure Fit over there, or 1mg over there, brands which you are aware of, you immediately develop a trust on this and say that that company's brand is something that I am willing to take. Yeah, what you are buying is a generic, right? And when you are purchasing that generic, the branded offering that is there, which is the alternative, it suffers, its sales suffers. So although the doctor may write a branded prescription, the dispensation will be entirely a different product, okay, a generic product, which is almost equal on terms of quality, okay, much different in terms of price. Now,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Please carry on.
No. So that's what I was saying. So that's how. And one last point that I wanted to make is, many people are not aware about this, but the size of that generic industry is about 40,000 crores. Indian pharma is 1,50,000 crores, out of which 40,000 crores is the generic industry. Now, you will not see this on your IMS data or on your CMARC data or on your SMSRC data or anything there, because they don't get audited, right? It's a completely different industry. It's not the top 250 companies which IMS audits or AVAX audits or anyone else audits. It's completely off, right? So that's why I was saying, Indian pharma industry growth is not coming from volume. Volume is only about 2% or 1.5% or something like that, right? But does it mean that lesser number of medicines are being sold year on year? No. Much more number of medicines are being sold, and that is where the shift is happening. We are seeing the erosion of the power of the brand. It is moving away from a brand to a generic, which is also like a brand. It can come from 1mg, it can come from CureFit, it can come from companies and brands that you trust, from a GeoMart, from an Amazon, from a Google, or from someone else. These are companies that you trust, right? And you will happily buy a brand where there is a huge cost. Why are e-pharmacies able to give you generic medicines at 20%, 30% discount? Because they go straight to the manufacturer, the contract manufacturer in Baddi or in Daman and Diu or wherever, in these SEZs, yeah, and they take it directly from there. The value that is locked into our distribution system of super stockist, C&F, wholesaler, distributor, sub-stockist, retailer is about 30 to 35%. Now that 35% is passed on straight as a discount to the customer, and that's how these guys are making huge amount of money. 1mg, for example, has 101.1 crore people, 110 million customers today. 1.1. How old is 1mg? 5 years old. They've already got 1 crore customers. It won't take them much time to go from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100 crore. So that's the speed with which these guys are moving up.
Absolutely relevant. And we also see it in happening in the same trend is happening in even in medical devices.
Yeah.
Because yes, as the doctor is getting less and less powerful going forward, and more of the decision making on the purchase of medical devices is also happening from the purchase
Hospital
management, hospital
Yeah.
management. So yes, the choices are getting lesser and lesser for the doctors. obviously they will provide one or two brands, and some of the hospitals they only keep one brand, even if it is medical devices. Most of the medical devices for many hospitals they are now only going ahead with a single brand, because they want to capture more and more value in the
Hmm.
entire distribution system which is there. And
Hmm.
they are getting more stronger in terms of bargaining power as well. So yes, that shift is happening, and that's where that's where the role comes of the having the right skill and adapting to the new environment, which is extremely crucial for everyone, be it in pharmaceutical or a medical device industry. So let me take another question from YouTube live. So Shrikant Shri is there. Sorry, there is one question from Rajdvip Ghosh. So he is saying, "Sir, nice to meet you. I am now a part of Servier, and he wants to be part of marketing team. Currently, he is in sales. So what are the things need to be done?" That is his question. Rajdvip, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Rajdeep, great that you are aspiring to get into marketing. It's a good place to be, and especially Surdia is a great organization to be part of the marketing team. I think what you need to do is Surdia plays a lot of premium on product knowledge, right? And so get your scientific facts right. Learn a lot, as much as you can, about science, about the therapies that you operate in, and I'm sure you're doing that. So that is, keep that going. I think additionally, what you need to do is, if you have an MBA, great. If you don't have an MBA, look for an MBA. Okay, try to get a regular MBA. Take a 2 year break from your career. Do a full time MBA, and once you do a full time MBA, your opportunities to get into marketing will become much higher. Okay, and that is because an MBA gives you a good foundation on the basics of marketing, the basics of finance, the basics of HR, which are required for you to get a head office kind of a job. Right? You might find that you are not going to be interested in marketing once you get exposed to the world of HR and finance and operations and logistics and all that. You might find that some of the other subjects interest you much more than marketing. So once you get exposed to that, you can make a decision on what you want to do to pick up. So some of our students in NMIMS, despite having done pharma MBA, they get placed in consulting groups, which has got nothing to do with their training, right? Because they are being trained for sales and marketing jobs in the pharmaceutical industry, and suddenly a smart cube consultant comes in, or a Deloitte comes in, and somebody else, they pick them up for consulting, but they are also following the life cycle, the life sciences sector. So these students become very important for them. So you might find yourself, getting recruited by a Novartis for their Hyderabad operations, where they're doing a lot of data and logistics, the back end sort of analytic work. Or you might get picked up in the GSK, in the COE, where international marketing exposure is given, or other companies that are looking for smart marketing people. So I think skill development, getting yourself exposed to an MBA program, or if you have an MBA, then and you're sure that you want to go into marketing, then I think you should read up and get yourself abreast of all the fundamentals of marketing. Like I said, the segmentation, targeting, profiling. Read up on case studies. Look at how different brands have managed their product life cycles, and get the basics of marketing up and running. And over a period of time, I think that will help you to create a very strong career in marketing. So best of luck.
Right, absolutely. I think MBA is the key to have the build your right skill set if you are moving from sales to marketing roles. And then there is one more question, interesting question. I think a lot of people will be having similar question, and that is pretty relevant for people who are fresh graduates. So this question is from Shrikant. So he is saying that he is a pharmacy graduate and he is facing some difficulty in sales interview. So can you help me how to develop those kind of skills, and what are those skills which he has to gain? I think this question will be relevant for even for MBA graduates as well.
Hmm.
So for fresh graduates, how they face a lot of difficulty in clearing these sales interview. What would be your suggestion to these people, and obviously what kind of skills they need to gain for
I
them to?
think if you're a fresh graduate, or if you're an MBA who has done an MBA without WorkX, and I strongly advise against that. Okay, I am of the opinion that you should work at least for 3 to 4 years in the industry before you decide to get an MBA. The value that you will get from an MBA program after having spent some years in the industry will be far better than something that a fresher can get. Right. So having said that, if you're a fresher with either an MBA or an undergraduate degree, when you appear for sales interviews, I think you should never go unprepared. Okay, and the best way to prepare is to go to, typically the way I would do this is for my sales interview after my graduation, I went and met 3 or 4 chemists. Okay. And I was not smart, right? Somebody told me to do this. Right. So I went to 3 or 4 chemists and asked about the products that Surdia has. Okay. And asked them, 3 out of the 4 chemists said 1 or 2, Dimacron, Flavidon, the larger selling brands. Some of the other larger chemists that were there in Hyderabad, they actually gave me a good list of products. They told me what the prices were. They told me what the competition was. They told me which doctors prescribe this product. If you tell them that I'm a young guy, I'm looking for an interview and all that, they'll give you some help, right? Some of them are kind enough to do that. With that information, when you go to the interview, you are far better suited and you are far more confident about talking about their products or understanding, what is the size of the industry. For example, some of the people who come to NMIMS for applying for a pharma MBA, when I ask them why a pharma MBA and why not a general MBA, they will give me a long sob story about how much they love the pharmaceutical market, how much they love the pharmaceutical industry, and how they are completely dependent on the pharma industry, and this is where they will make their life and all that. And then I ask them to name 3 pharma companies, they can't do it. Right? So people can see through. Right? So don't be facetious about it. People can see through. If you are not honest about your information, don't say something that you will get caught in. So go out. I think two, 3 simple steps I can tell you. One, please read. Right? Do a lot of primary research, because there's a lot about these companies that will come in business press. Right? Read up, look it up, Google. At my time, I didn't have Google, so I had to do walk around the place. You have Google, everything in your phone, right? Simply read up as much as you can about the company where you're giving an interview. Second, go out into the market, talk to chemists, get a sense about how their products are moving, what are the fast moving products, what is not moving, why, who's writing, whatever. Any information that you can get will be invaluable. The third thing, and this is a bonus, right? If you can meet people who are already in the market, meet some reps who are already working in the field, right? Either at the chemist shop or go to a hospital OPD or something like that. There'll be hundreds of them over there. If you can talk to a few of them, or if you know somebody, your seniors, if you're in school and some of your seniors have been placed in industry, please use them, talk to them. They will give you a lot of information about the kind of questions that will be asked in an interview, about how you can tackle, for example.
You're muted. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Where did you lose me?
No, just now.
Oh, just now. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you need to be, if you speak to people, they will give you a good understanding of, their experiences in interviews, the kind of trick questions that are asked. How do I tackle this? So during my time, there was a typical question, a manager would pull out a Reynolds pen, give it to me and say, sell the pen to me. Now those are all very old. So I'm sure there are newer ways in which they'll probably give you a phone and say, tell me about this product. How will you sell it to me? And so, there are lots of common threads that run within interviews. So speak to experienced people, go out into the market and read. These are the 3 important things that I can give you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can still remember my days when I was trying to get into pharma. I also remember the RCPA being done with the
Yeah.
chemist for the prospective employer. And obviously, as you say right now, I think most of us have been using setting up informational meeting with the people who are already working in your target organization. I think do that. Information meeting helps a lot to get insider information about that particular company or that industry, or about that particular division or business unit. So these are very critical, and don't set up informational meeting just before the interview. Just have these things regular. Keep in touch with the industry people. In having that connect regularly and knowing about more and more things is extremely critical for anybody to have a accelerated career success, that I would say. Another question is also related to similar question from Priyanshi. Sorry, I think I lost that question. Yeah, that question was retracted. So that was similar question on YouTube Live. Probably what are those resources which are available for people to get more information and detailed information. I think you have already described that. There is one comment from Gagandeep Kathuria. He was our first guest on this show. So he's saying, wonderful conversation, lot to learn. Thank you so much, Gagan, for being there on this show consistently. And I think there is one more question from Raghav. He is asking about regulatory affairs. Can you help me in regulatory affairs of medical devices, especially? So I think, regulatory affairs also, you need to have that relevant skill set. And if you have experience of regulatory environment, prior working experience, I think that would be helpful. Now let me take a few questions from Zoom. A lot of people are still there on Zoom, and there are a lot of questions in the chat window. Uh, so let me read out one question. Rakshit Sharma is asking. I think he is from medical devices. He is asking. It is heard from many salespeople that their employer companies are creating extra pressure of sales,
Mm.
knowing the fact that their employees won't leave as there is a scarcity of job in the market because of COVID. So how relevant this situation is, and will this fear continue in next financial year as well?
It's very sad if it is happening. I cannot say anything else. I mean, this is the absolutely not the right time for companies to put pressure on sales, because everybody knows that the situation is not such that that you are able to create extra demand in the market. And this is not true of pharma or devices. This is true of any sector that you take. Right, every sector is seeing now. We should thank our stars that we don't work in hotels or in airlines or in some of those industries, where they have completely fallen. The movies are not getting released. Can you remember? Can you imagine a situation in India? In India, there is the ABC of India, as they say. The A is astrology, B is Bollywood, C is cricket. That this is what India thrives on. Now, उसमें से जो B है, the B part, Bollywood, which is such an important part, has completely stopped releasing products. They are started to look at Netflix and OTT platforms to release. So this is a rampant issue everywhere. And in such an situation, if if organizations expect sales to happen, then it's unfortunate. Now, having said that, I think there are certain organizations that are actually doing very well. And those are organizations where you have opportunistic product launches. Okay, opportunistic doesn't say opportunistic not in the wrong sense, right? It's about getting the right product. For example, Glenmark launched Favipravir, and it's more than 100 crore product today, right? And in how much time? In less than 3 months. You could not imagine a situation like this, for or the organizations that have launched Remdesivir or HCQ or any of these products, right? So those are absolutely suited for the time and the kind of societal acceptance that there is. There's a great demand for it. So if there's pressure coming on the sales for those products, that is understandable, right? But sales coming in for acute therapy, which have suffered badly, right? Chronic therapy hasn't suffered as much as acute therapies have suffered. Sales pressures coming in for new brand launches that were timed unfortunately around the time of COVID coming in. There's nothing you can do about it. What can you do? There's no demand in the market. There's no prescription in the market. Now that actually has it reflects more badly on management's decision to do a sort of thing rather than on your ability to sell, right? So what I can only say is that even if you're unfortunately in a situation where you're facing pressure coming in from your management, please do not lose self-confidence. Please do not think of it as reflective of your capabilities. Okay, your ability to not create demand in a market like this does not say that you're a bad salesman. So for God's sake, please don't lose faith, don't lose confidence, right? Stay the course. And what you will also realize is the relationships that you have built up with your customers will stand you in good stead. You will have 20 doctors out of your entire MSL or your doctor list who will be very, very close to you, and they will be the greatest supporters of your brands. Focus on those guys. Those are the guys who are most happy to actually, given the choice, they will try and support you, right? So this is a time when people are trying to help each other. Instead of doing that, if people are coming back and putting adverse pressure and all that, it's a sad state of affairs. But the only thing that you need to do is to understand that this is temporary. This is not going to last for a long time. And by all means, you should keep faith in your capabilities. Please do not let anybody tell you that you are not a good salesperson.
Absolutely, and I can probably I know what kind of so there are a few Indian companies, especially in medical device sector, as less and less number of procedures are happening. Currently, also the recovery is about 50% of the earlier numbers, and most of the Indian players, especially in medical devices, they have their customer base from the government sector. Okay, so the government is sector is completely shut down, especially with regards to specialized procedure, and most of the government infrastructure is being focused on COVID management. So that is why a lot of Indian players in medical device sector are struggling to get their numbers. Even like 50% recovery is there, but for most of the Indian companies, they are not having that kind of numbers to support that. So probably they are also feeling the heat, both from management as well, and as the ground level as well. So I think it's I would also say that it's temporary. Work on your skill set, and if you feel the situation is completely getting out of control, maybe you can look for an alternate. But yeah, as Mr. Salil said, having the faith in your capabilities and being there and trusting in the times to come, I think that is the approach which we all can have. Okay, so there is one more question about fresher. I think we have already answered. So there is one more question Ritesh is asking, since we are talking a lot about digital. Okay, so he is saying that we salesperson are ready for digital calls. Okay, but the thing is, HCPs should also accept this. When will they take it?
That's a very practical question, and I think doctors are also beginning to understand that digital is the way forward, right? It will not probably be digital alone. And it is something that we call as phygital. There'll be a mix of physical and digital, right? So new probably a rep working day, a typical working day in a rep's life, 3 to 6 months from today might be that you'll do 2 or 3 physical calls in a day, 4 or 5 remote calls, and probably spend a lot of time doing administrative work, analytical work, whatever is required to set up the calls for the next day. So that could probably be the way that your 8 hours or 10 hours will be covered. Now, doctors are also human beings, and there will also be many categories of people who are not going to be totally believers in digital, right? So my request will be, don't pick up a case from there and say that, look, this doctor does not even pick up a phone. Uska phone bhi uske secretary ke haath mein hota hai, uske paas email id nahi hai, email id ka password bhi secretary ke paas hota hai, wo kuch nahi padta, right? So there will be always some guys like that. Now they will be increasingly in the minority as you go forward. Yeah, the more and more youngsters, and what we've seen is doctors in the age group of 35 to 55 are the ones that are most uh, accepting of new technology. So I have invested in a digital therapeutics company which is trying to go out and talk to these doctors and convince them to use these platforms at this time, because it also has a teleconsulting feature, right? We expected that we should target doctors between 20 and 40 age group. It didn't work. It actually worked in the 35 to the 55 age group, because the 20 to 40 age group are the ones where practice is still picking up. Yeah, so for them it's not about the existing pool, but how do I get more patients into my clinic. The 35 to 55 are where they are at their peak of their practice, and for them, serving their patients, keeping them close to them, and being in touch with them always is a much better or a more important thing in their mind. So there will, I think you should understand that there will be always doctors who will say no to digital. There will always be doctors who will say very yes to digital, and there will be some guys in between. But that is, a part of learning. It's a part of what we call as the learning curve, right? And the learning curve is always steep. So it will take some time, but over a period of time, I'm sure that these guys will get used to it. Now, how many of us instantly knew how to SMS when a dumb phone came? How many of us instantly understood all the features of a smartphone when we bought our first smartphone? Yeah, सीखना पड़ता है, थोड़ा time लगता है, but we'll get there, we'll learn. Right? We were not confident, in March, before March, if I would have said that let's do a Zoom meeting on Sunday evening 5 to 7, 2 people would have come, me and Pankaj, that's it, nobody else. Right? Today there are 30-40 people of you sitting over here. Why is that happening on a Sunday evening? Right? Because times have evolved, times have changed, and that's what even doctors will understand. Right? So be patient. I'm sure there will be enough and more HCPs in your MSL who will be able to connect with you digitally.
Absolutely, and it all boils down to the kind of value which you will be bringing.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not that the doctor has all the time in the world and still he will be giving that time to you. You have to create that value as well, so that he keeps on meeting you consistently. And we see it happening in medical devices as well. Now, if we approach a doctor and we are trying to take an appointment, even for a physical call, they are saying no physical call. Let's meet virtually. Let's connect
Yeah.
over Zoom or
Yeah.
Microsoft Teams. So
Yeah.
that is happening, guys, and we see more and more acceptance coming in, even from the healthcare professionals. They also would not like to take to risk their lives, and we see a lot of kind of COVID cases happening with the healthcare professionals also. So they are also kind of understanding this fact, and we also should be ready with our value proposition. That is the key. If you have the right value, you can do anything in this world. Okay, so be prepared from that angle. So there is one more comment and question from Sanjeev Sethi. I think he also works in surgical devices. So he's asking those salesperson who are in procedure specific segments in medical device industry like joints or implants, they have a fear in their mind like losing the job. So what should they do to overcome in this unprecedented challenging situation? Even he has a lot of friends in this segment. I think lot of fear is there,
Hmm.
especially for most of the people, even in devices. And for devices, a lot of people have their salaries cut, and a lot of people are losing their jobs. So what should, I think we have already discussed that, but would be
Yeah.
your one topmost advice to uh, people who are working in this segment?
No, so I would tell Sanjeev that, these are unprecedented times. I mean, you can't do anything. The fear of losing a job is always there in our mind, yeah, at any point. Even when everything was going great, when the economy was up and running, even then, if you would not meet your budget for a month or a target for a month or something, you would still have that fear of losing the job, right? Today, at that point of time, your fear is a little less because you are almost assured that you will get another job very soon. Today your fear is coming from the fact that if I have a job and I lose it, I won't get another job again, right? So don't let that bother you, don't let that worry you. See, people understand that the going is not right, right? That things are very different. These are very horrible times, and I really hope and pray that mankind doesn't have to go through this again ever, right? So it is a time that will unsettle. It is a time that will create fear in even in the best of us. The only way that you can overcome that is to be confident about your skills and capabilities. What is without, like one of my very dear senior colleagues, a senior friend of mine, Mr. Hariram Krishnan, who is a former managing director of Galderma. I'm lucky to be one of his mentees, an informal mentor. So he always talks about what is called as the circle of influence and what is called as the circle of control, right? What can you control? What you can control is what you should build on. Now, what can you control? You can control your reading, you can control your exercising, you can control your fitness, you can control your knowledge, you can control your skill power. Can you control the market? Can you control your customer? Can you control your distributor? You can't, right? You can at best influence them. So see how much that influence works. If that influence works, great. If that doesn't work, it will work at a certain point. We need to understand that things are quickly coming back to normal. I mean, it's not too far away. We have kind of come over the hill, as we say, right? We peaked out. Now it's only going down. It's getting better. So keep the faith, have trust, build capabilities, use the time that you have to make yourself a better person. If you're as if you're static in the sense that today how much you know, tomorrow also you know the same thing, then you are essentially making yourself irrelevant. So as you
Absolutely.
keep reading, as you keep skilling, as you keep doing better, more courses and things like that, you will start to get ideas. Yeah, and your customers will see a new and energetic person, and I'm sure they will also respond in that way. So just keep the faith, that's all.
Absolutely. I think picking up the right skill, upskilling yourself, and staying relevant is the key, guys. The times are tough, but yes, use this time to upskill yourself, and having those relevant skill is going to help you in the future. There is another question with regards to AI intervention in medical device industry and overall healthcare industry related to our job. Madhav is asking that question: AI intervention in medical device industry. What would be
Okay.
your comment on this?
Okay, so artificial intelligence has a great amount of role, at least in the pharma sector, and I'm sure even in the medical device sector, in the upstream activity, right,
Yeah.
in the back end of business, where product development is happening, drug development is happening, drug research is happening, R&D, making the distribution and supply chain more efficient. Those kind of areas, there is a very good role for artificial intelligence. So if you haven't read it, then I would suggest that you Google Novartis and artificial intelligence. Just put these two words into Google. You will get a lot of literature about how Novartis is using artificial intelligence, not only in the back end, but how they are able to even kind of create tools for their sales employees. You know, for that, artificial intelligence essentially is a technology which allows a machine to pick up a repetitive task. Okay, anything that you're doing repetitively, and there is a pattern to it. Computer code will be very quick on picking it up. Not, humans are not as quick as doing that. So the machine learns every time you put more data in. The machine becomes smarter and smarter and smarter, and it does this at an exponential rate. And in that way, these are applicable to tasks which are repetitive, such as laboratory work, such as filling in some forms, administrative work, clerk ka kaam karna. Those things are, they're repetitive in nature. If your job you consider as repetitive, then you will lose it. But your job is not repetitive, because every individual customer is to be dealt with in a different way, right? A machine cannot do that, right? At least not now. So if you say that I may lose my job because of artificial intelligence and machine learning, no, you will not. But what you can do is harness this technology to make your job better, right? So today I am unable to have enough information about how to set up my next customer call, for example. What was the thing that I discussed in the past? What is his behavioral pattern? What is his thought processes? Where are all these informations going to come from? It should come either from you, or it has to come from a machine which has got technology, has got the ability to scan many different points of information which you don't have. आपका information कहाँ से आएगा? Chemist से आएगा या doctor से आएगा या आपके colleague से आएगा, है ना? The machine basically is able to get his digital footprint. It's able to understand what movies he likes, what magazines he reads, who influences him, who his influencers are, right? Where is he getting his information from? What is he trying to do? What's his belief pattern politically, socially, economically? What does he think? Then it can narrow down on what are his searches that have happened on, for what molecule has he been studying, what sort of a device has he been reading on, what's his thought process there, is he a believer or is he still in the non-believer stage, and all this, it can draw multiple data points from places and create a nice persona for you, what you call as a digital persona, right? And that persona makes your targeting sharper, your positioning of your brand much more effective, and all the amount of money that you're spending on that call, which in pharma costs anything between 1,000 to 2,000 rupees, depending on which therapy you are in the medical device industry it might be more, because you make fewer calls but you make more, more sales. So from that perspective, if you're able to get all those things right, AI is a very powerful tool which can augment your work, right? So, and that's what Novartis is trying to do in helping get all this data together and putting it through a machine which can then throw up the right sort of decision points for you, in which you can get which actually increases the probability of your success.
Absolutely, and I think yeah, I can see even in medical devices as well. Like more than us, probably the doctors are also feeling that they are going to lose their jobs, because a lot of robotic surgeries are happening. Even in intervention cardiology, a lot of surgeries are happening robotics. Okay,
Yeah.
more and more new hospitals are getting robotic systems installed in their setup. So probably doctors are also, but yes, robotics is also helping doctors perform the redundant, repetitive tasks, as you said. They are kind of delegating these tasks to a robot now, and so that they can focus on more and more of research, new advancement which is there in the procedure. Okay, so
Can
don't
I
worry
can I
about
can
that.
I can I add one point here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so if you look at the way the oldest form of artificial intelligence that we know of is a plane flying on autopilot mode,
Right.
right? But does that make the pilot irrelevant? Right?
No.
Will you sit in a plane where there is no pilot over there? No, you won't, right? But why is the pilot required? Because things like takeoff and landing is not, a machine can't handle that. Because situations are very different every time. It's not a repetitive task, right? But flying on a chartered airplane, a plot, the travel path of that flight path or whatever it's called, is a preset thing which the plane understands that it has to fly in this direction. But the landing and the taking off is where the pilot's skill becomes most important. So similarly, even when robotic surgeries are happening, it cannot happen in isolation without a doctor. Those are the
Yeah.
doctors. But here, and that's what I was trying to drive at, that the job may be slightly different, right? But the skills that you have and the value that you bring to the workplace is what will differentiate you and keep you indispensable even when machines come in, right? So therefore you need to be able to bring your intelligence there, you need to be able to bring your analytics there, you need to be able to bring in what is called as experience, right? All the experience of your past, which your machine does not know, or a system, a robot will never understand. That's what helps to keep you indispensable. Okay, and so when Pankaj and I have been speaking a lot about upskilling, and I think that is where the upskilling becomes most relevant.
Absolutely, and human touch is always required. If you are a patient, would you like to be treated by a robot or by a human? That is the question which you can ask yourself. I think that is pretty relevant. And another few question, I think there is question from Binaya asking about digital marketing affect pharma in future. I think we have already spoken about a lot of thing about digital marketing. Do you want to specifically talk about any digital marketing trends with regards to kind of the way outreach, patient outreach, or the customer outreach is happening?
I
More
think
from, yeah.
so. Yeah. So I think technology has a huge role to play there. And like I said, there are two things that are very important that technology can do. One is it can serve at scale. So in a situation today where you have 5,000 medical reps and you are able to reach out to 3.5 lakh doctors, which is still 35% of the entire universe. It is a very inefficient model. Right? With technology, you don't need 5,000 reps to reach out to those doctors. You can reach out to maybe all 10 lakhs of them without getting these guys out of the way, right? So they can focus on the doctors who are the most productive, who give a lot of relevance to physical relationships and so on and so forth. While technology can take care of the rest, right? Digital marketing can take care of the rest. Another use case for digital technology is the tail end brands. Tail end brands are there are many organizations that have a large number of brands in the portfolio which are not promoted, right? But those brands still have growth capacity.
Right.
There is an ability to grow that. So you can use digital marketing over there to kind of grow those brands without having to spend an additional rupee. Whatever you get in revenue from those brands basically goes into your profit because you don't have any selling costs, right? So there are agencies that will do this for you. Another way of doing this is to get customer information, which is very relevant, right? And that's what will differentiate an organization from another. That's the competitive advantage that happens. How can I engage a customer in the way that he wants to be engaged? That will delight him. That will create an experience that gives him, the loyalty comes for the experience. The loyalty never comes for a brand. It always comes for an experience. You've seen that human beings are fickle, right? You will happily leave one brand and take another as long as the experience from that brand comes in. So people are more loyal to experiences, not to products. So I think digital has a very strong role to play because it takes in information. It has a far more efficient way in which it can help you understand your customer better, and therefore you can engage that customer better through products and services that you are able to create. Give him a great experience, keep him loyal. Okay, focus on things like customer lifetime value, which we don't do, right? And that's what a Flipkart and Walmart and all these guys will do, rather than for us it's that one sale and we clap and we say prescription पर्चा निकल गया, चलो doctor convert हो गया, and then छोड़ देते हैं उसको. Then we look for our next guy और किसको convert किया जाए. The converted doctor is easier to manage than to convert a new doctor, yeah, but we don't get all those things. So this is what technology helps us to understand. So I think digital marketing has a lot of relevance in the way pharma will approach this, the new normal that we were talking about.
Right, absolutely. And there is another interesting question as from Ravinder. As a lot of new business activity has stopped, no new products are being launched by most of the pharma and even medical device company. No new products are getting introduced in the market especially from multinational player. No new division is kind of coming up. So Ravinder is asking, will this COVID scenario impact hiring for freshers in sales and launching new division?
Yeah, but I don't think freshers are hired only when a company is expanding, right? So while expansion will probably take a couple of years to happen, and this is not new, right? Now this has the economy was. I don't know if you understand the concept of business cycles. Business operates in cycles. Okay, it is never static. It is never linear. We see it as linear, but it is never linear. It's always up and down, up and down, up and down, and these cycles happen. So at this point of time, the business cycle was anyway in the downturn, right? So we were anyway going through a downturn where business activity would have slowed. Now COVID unfortunately came at a time when the cycle was at its low, which is it is fortunate if you look at it in one way, because anyway the economy was slowing down. But on the other way, imagine if COVID had come at the time when the economy was on its peak, then at that point of time so much of economic value would have been destroyed. But at this point of time, anyway hiring would have been slow for a couple of years. Anyway, business activity would have been slow for a couple of years. It has been accelerated, it has been impacted to a great extent by COVID. That is absolutely no two ways about it. But even without COVID, that would have still been the case, right? So from your specific question about hiring of freshers, there may be certain pain points, yeah, but I'm 100% confident that they are temporary, right? These will ease out, because companies do not hire only when they expand their operations. They don't hire only when they're setting up a new division or launching new products or anything. At all points of time, people require people, because people are constantly moving around, right? Some guys leave the company, go to another company, therefore these guys need a job over here, so they look for other people. Sometimes, whenever there are good people in organizations, so if you're a fresher who's doing an MBA, for example, yeah, you will land yourself a job, probably not your dream job, but you will definitely be able to get placed, right? It will be tough. I'm not saying it's a bed of roses. It will be tough, but at this point of time, just getting a job is a bonus. So don't worry too much about it. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think we can probably relate these times to 2008 times when the global recession happened. Probably this is similar, like a year or so would be kind of this, where not much business activity is happening, and there would be some pressure on new jobs creation as well. But I think have faith in your abilities, building the right skills, and staying put in the game. And if you get a job, then don't worry about getting that elite dream job for yourself. If you get a job, just kind of work for few months, few years, and then probably times are tough, but yes, you can get yourself in this industry. Just breaking in this industry is the key. If you can break it and at any level, I think you can make your way upwards going forward. So that is there. There is one more question I think which Vishal has asked me privately. So Vishal, I'll come back to you. Maybe you can connect with me over LinkedIn. That is a specific question, so we will not take for this session. So another question is by Dinesh. I think that is also pretty relevant, looking at the current situation. So he's saying that I am going to brick and mortar pharmacy for metformin without prescription. I
Mhm.
can get it, but in online pharmacy, if there is any small error in prescription, it is being rejected. Even AIOCD is also opposing e-pharmacies. So, what is your view on e-pharmacies regarding many prescriptions are getting rejected in e-pharmacies?
Yeah. So one of the greatest objections that the AIOCD had for e-pharmacies was that e-pharmacies are doing illegal business. They're not following the relevant sections of the Drug and Cosmetic Act. Yeah, and they started to bring this up, and they say, and they tried this in court, and the court then gave a stay order on e-pharmacies and so on and so forth. But like you rightly said, e-pharmacies are actually following the law better than a brick and mortar pharmacy. Because you can get metformin, or you can get augmentin, or you can get any product you want. Even a codeine preparation, Corex, for example, you will be able to get it without a prescription, right? But as long as you have a relationship with that pharmacy. But in an e-pharmacy, you will never be able to get this. So e-pharmacies are very serious about themselves as business operations, and therefore, and they don't have a union to back them up. If a drug inspector takes an action against a medical shop, a brick and mortar store, the AIOCD will stand up, because they are a unionized organization. They have the support of the union. An e-pharmacy company doesn't have that, right? And therefore, they will be more careful in the way that they do business. The second part is that e-pharmacies, as we know them, are not going to be only e-pharmacies. Distribution of medicine is going to be a very small part of their entire operation. So last week in Economic Times, there was a wonderful analysis of 1mg and its operations in India. Okay, if you haven't read it, you should read it. Now, what 1mg says is that they have still not made a profit on medical distribution. Okay, they are not looking at medicine distribution as a profit making thing. They captured it beautifully in one sentence. They said, we want to be Livongo, we don't want to be pill pack. Okay, which is a great way to tell you what their strategy is. Now, a Livongo, for those of you who don't know, Livongo is a virtual disease management company, okay, which recently bought a company called Teladoc, which was the world's largest telemedicine consulting platform. So Livongo is a patient management organization. It doesn't distribute medicine alone. It gives lots of other things: counseling, support, home and healthcare, insurance, doctor consultation, so on and so on, lots of different things. So that part is where the money is coming from. Okay. Now, a 1 mg will want to become a Livongo. But a brick and mortar, a Riddhi Siddhi pharmacy or a Sriram medical store or something will never be able to do anything beyond this, right? Unless they get organized or they get picked up or something like that. So a brick and mortar pharmacy will only be a medicines distributor, and but a 1 mg will be far bigger. They'll create an entire ecosystem. Now this is very much like how Reliance retail works, or how Walmart works, or how Amazon works, versus your kirana shop, your neighborhood kirana shop. Both exist, but the experiences are very different. The customer segments are very different. You are very clear when to go to an Amazon or when to go to your neighborhood pharmacy. आपको एक पैकेट दही चाहिए या आप Amazon पे नहीं जाओगे, है ना? लेकिन आपको 100 ग्राम मिर्ची चाहिए तो आप किराना स्टोर पे जाओगे या तो your local vegetable seller. Otherwise, your monthly purchases you will buy from somewhere else. So that kind of a situation will happen for e-pharmacies. In my opinion, e-pharmacies have a huge future, and they are, and that's it's actually wrong to call them e-pharmacies, because these are e-pharmacies are only the starting point. They will become large as healthcare providers, healthcare organizations, HCOs, and that is where pharma will only be distributing medicine. We will be only manufacturing and selling to them. We are not, because we are not doing anything else.
Right, absolutely. So, guys, you need to understand the shift is happening towards more and more value creation. Okay, so the more and more services are getting bundled together and then they are sold as a package. Okay, so one thing can be a starting point, but probably there are other things at the back end which probably people do not see, and there are new things which are coming in future for them to actually unlock that value for most of these organizations in this space. So that is absolutely, I think we need to understand it correctly, how this macro and micro environment is going to change in pharma and medical devices. I think that's a pretty good session. One more question from Nikita. She is asking about medical devices, how to get an entry. She is also from MBA in healthcare management. So Nikita, I would say we will not take this question for this session, because this session is not about how to get entry. You can go and watch my other videos, a lot of other sessions which you have done previously, or you can get in touch with me one-on-one and we can discuss how you can actually get entry in medical device industry. I think Madhav is asking, Madhav Jamalpure, if you're still there, he's asking if he can unmute himself. Madhav, yes, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to ask any question in person with Mr. Salil. If you're still there, please
Yeah,
unmute yourself. Yeah,
yeah, sir. Thanks, sir. Am I audible, sir?
yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
are
are.
very much.
Sir, it is not means it is not mandated to answer this question, but just want to know your view regarding one statement I came across on Twitter that strike very means futuristically, that strikes me. It says that either a robot or a creator will take your job.
Okay,
So how do you endorse this statement?
right. So see, like I said, robots are those who will do repetitive tasks, right? As you are doing again and again and again. For example, driving a car, or doing clerical work, or filling prescriptions in a pharmacy, or doing a surgery or something like that, right? Those are repetitive tasks which a robot can take. The other kind of tasks are where innovation happens, where constant evolution happens, right? And therefore a creator is somebody who is able to create value. Okay, and like Pankaj has been saying, it's all about value creation, right? Somebody who can create better value than you will replace you. So the only way to do that, to not allow somebody else to add more value than you, is to constantly upgrade, upskill, and think about how you can add value to your current job, how you can do better in the job that you're doing, and so on and so forth. So I think either one is, if you are in a repetitive task job, which none of us are, so we are pretty safe from the robot part. But the other part is where the competition will always come, and that is the creators, the value creators. And this is true not only of individuals but also of companies, right? We have seen companies which have stopped innovating. They go down and bankrupt in less than 10 years. So the only way to do that is to constantly understand what are the new trends that are happening, to keep the environment, keep an eye on the environment, understand what new things are coming in, what new things I need to know. And that, I think, the first step to doing that is reading. Read as much as you can about the industry that you operate in. If it's the medical devices industry, or if it is the pharma industry, or anything in the healthcare world, right? You have fierce pharma, you have fierce devices, you have fierce R&D. There's a whole host of publications that come up. which tell you about how to or what's happening in the industry. So as you keep reading and reading and reading, you are not only abreast about new developments, but you always know about something, right? So the added knowledge that you will get from there is something that will always, kind of will make you a creator, where you are constantly creating additional value to your role. So that's the way I would say this. Look at this
Yes.
statement.
Thank you very much, boss. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madhav, for asking questions. So we will take one last question. I think Sachin has raised his hand. I think it's been 2 hours straight. I think it's been difficult for you to talk straight away. So last question of the day, Sachin, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, really, thank you for giving me the last opportunity. Um, so my question is, I have worked in devices also, and currently I'm working as a manager in a medical multinational. So currently, what we are saying, we are getting bleeding in our areas where we are working, like in terms of sales, like the pharmacies, chain pharmacies are bleeding like anything. They are buying from outside and selling here, and we are doing hard works to convert the our brands, to convert the doctors. We are focusing on like anything, and company also not understanding ki ground peoples are some companies are getting benefit, but not from all chain pharmacies. Like currently MedPlus is get we are getting from MedPlus, but not getting from Wellness, which they are having in Pune. If I calculate, they are having more than 40 MedPlus and 40 Wellness shops. So this is a big bleeding, and they are now opening their shops in very important uh, uh, street and near the big hospitals like in Pune, I can say Ruby, Jahangir, Dinanath. So there we are increasing our footprint. We are trying our best, but still this is bleeding for us, and our work is going in a loss. Like that kind of feeling we are getting everything. So one comments and one help and one some guidance from your side for this point, sir.
I agree, and this is something that I have been also saying. That we are losing out. The whole generic industry is like 40,000 crores out of the 1,50,000 crore market, and it's growing tremendously. So 40,000 will become 60,000, 70,000, 80,000 in the next 2-3 years, right? And that is where our work needs to evolve. Our job needs to evolve. We need to be able to think about stakeholders beyond the doctor, right? Which currently in our business model we don't do. For us, our entire business and the focus is on doctor, how to get the doctor converted and to give the prescription. We are realizing, and as you are saying, more and more prescriptions are getting generated. You guys are putting a lot of hard work in generating new prescriptions, but those prescriptions are being lost. They're not converting into your brand sales, right? So that is where I was saying the power of the brand is eroding. So as you are feeling this, I think what you need to do is to create a little bit of groundswell as in lots of feedback going back into your company to explain what the situation is, right? And I'm not saying your company is not aware of this. The only thing is that they are working on probably on a model where they can get into an agreement or something like that with these e-pharmacies. Many companies have started to do this. Once that sort of distribution thing gets mapped out, then things will come back to normal. At your level, what I think you should be able to do is create what is known as a stakeholder map, right? Who are your important stakeholders in the business? At this moment, you will probably have only your doctors, right? Now, if you bring in the pharmacy chains, if you bring in the wellnesses and the medlifes and all the other guys into this, what are the kind of work, what is the activity that you should be able to do on them? So you need to be able to collect information, you need to set up meetings, you need to go and talk to them, negotiate, or at least try and understand how to break into that system, right? And once once you're able to develop a plan like that, you need to be able to take that back to your manager or to your office and say that, look, this is the kind of business opportunity that we have. This is there are people that I have been talking to who are more than happy to negotiate a deal or to do a procurement purchase or something like that. And let me get in there. And if you show them the value, for example, let's say you're able to negotiate a 2 crore deal or a 1.5 crores deal or something like that, why would your manager not support it if he's getting additional business from there? So I think the more important thing is for you to develop these stakeholder maps, understand who your stakeholders are. Doctors to a certain extent, but they would have their power has started to come down. These guys are rising as the more important stakeholder, right? So in those organizations, who are the key people that you should be talking to? Map those guys out. What is the role that they do? What are their requirements? What is your discussion with them? How have you progressed? What are the opportunities that you're seeing? So on and so forth, right? And then start to develop a business plan. Then start to quantify it in the sense that what is the rupee value, right? Today I'm generating business worth this much. MedLife is taking away all this business. I'm not getting credit for it. Or wellness is getting, how can I push my brand in? So when you start to talk about it, they will start to negotiate on price, and one thing will lead to the other. And at least you would have mapped it out. Okay, then it's not your decision. It's basically the finance guy in the office who will say, nahi, 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 isme margin nahi hai, to hum nahi karenge. And then that's not your, it's not up to you to do that. But at least what you would have done is created a very logical document which will allow your management to understand what the ground reality is, and you are not seen as part of a problem. Because only if you only complain, you will be seen as part of a problem, right? But if you're working on a solution, then you become part of the solution, which is a very different point of view from which to address the situation with your leadership. And I'm sure they will appreciate that if you come back to them with a solution, not a fully baked one, but at least something that gives them an understanding of the kind of business that they're losing out and an opportunity to make an entry. So what's the plan, right? I know I'm losing out to wellness, but what can I do? This is what you can do. These are the stakeholders. This is what my conversations have been with them. This is what they are saying, and this is the action that we should take. Maybe if you map it out like that, it'll help a lot.
Absolutely. I think you have given a lot of gems to all of us. Thank you so much, Salil, for being there for straight 2 hours. I think it's been I was sipping water in between, and you have not even sipped a drop of water. I think your energy is extremely infectious, and that's what we can all take from you. And I think you have been an inspiration. I think you have solved a lot of queries for most of us. Guys, thank you so much to everyone who participated in Zoom, as well as people who are there on YouTube Live. I could see more than 50 people logged in on YouTube Live, and and still there are about 40 odd people on Zoom as well. So thank you so much everyone for being there consistently, and for people who are new. So keep watching this space. Every Sunday live we come here and talk about medical device, pharmaceutical industry. And once again, thank you so much, Salil, for being there and helping us through and showing the light at the end of the tunnel. We hope that better times are going to come in the future, and this is only temporary. But yes, you rightly pointed out, this is the time to upskill ourselves, build those relevant skills, and stay relevant. And yes, digital or phygital, whatever it is going to be the future of healthcare industry. So once again, thank you so much for being here, and that's it from my end.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your Sunday evening with me. And thank you, Pankaj, for inviting me and helping me to connect with so many new people. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can message me directly, and we can be in touch for any questions or queries that I can help you with. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Right. Thank you so much. Bye bye, guys. Take care. Good night. Have a very few hours remaining in the weekend, but just enjoy. If you want to watch a movie, then go ahead and do it. And I think I believe that your last 2 hours was a value add for you in your career. I hope that just keep sharing your comments as well in the YouTube live, in the YouTube, or one-on-one on LinkedIn. If you can share that you have attended this session on LinkedIn as well, that will help us to reach out to more and more people and talk about these kind of sessions to your colleagues, to your friends. And I think let's bring more value to help each other. I think this is the way forward for all of us. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye bye. Good night. See you.
Good night.
Thanks, sir. Good night.